Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ravens flock, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. So, the Ravens had yet another day of practice in training camp. However, today, there's nothing to report from training camp. Today was a walkthrough, so there's nothing to report. Pretty much light. The only thing to highlight from practice today is the fact that both Michael Phelps and Ray Lewis came to visit the team. They interacted with the players, the coaches, talked with everybody, and at the end of the day, they both gave some very, very great, heartfelt speeches to the team, which focused on two things: preparation and execution in the biggest moments in order to finish and accomplish your ultimate goal. Michael Phelps focused more on the aspect of preparation, doing the small things to prepare yourself and make sure you are where you need to be by the time it is time to go to battle. For him, it was competing in the Olympics. For the Ravens, it's competing every Sunday against their opponent and then competing in January in the postseason when everything's on the line. Ray Lewis gave more of a heartfelt speech about the overall aspect of appreciating the moment, taking this seriously, doing everything you can to make sure you leave it out on the field, but more so focusing on executing and finishing. You want to execute and you want to finish to reach your ultimate goal, because when you leave this game, you want to make sure you gave everything you had and you didn't leave anything on the table, because you don't want to look back and say, hey, I should have done more. I could have done this. I could have done that. So their messages were very impactful. It's always great to have Ray Lewis around and giving motivational speeches. You know the fan base wants him out there every single week motivating the team, but you can't ask Ray to be out there to give motivational speeches to this team every single week, including the postseason. That's just not realistic. These guys got to step up and do it themselves. But it was great to see Ray Lewis out there. It was great to see Michael Phelps out there. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of camp. The reason we're actually here today for this video is to discuss some interesting comments from offensive coordinator Todd Monken about one specific player. And that player, of course, is this guy right here. This guy that has been getting absolutely cooked by the Ravens flock. Many Ravens fans have had a lot of negative things to say about him. I am, of course, talking about Daniel Faalele. This has been something that has been very, very, very tough to talk about, and it has left the fan base divided, and it has basically put this whole aspect of negativity on Daniel Faalele, and some of the players and even the coaches are now starting to speak about it. We had heard recently in his press conference with Rashad Bateman, he spoke highly of Faalele and talked about the improvements and how much better he's been. So you've heard players speaking highly of Faalele, going to bat and defending their teammate. And now here's the offensive coordinator doing the very same thing. He had a very passionate mini speech, just going to bat in defense of Faalele. Of course, this is in regards to that horrible rep we had seen from Faalele in the preseason. Overall, his first preseason game against the Colts, he had a poor performance. We're going to actually talk about his rating and how things were in terms of how poorly he was graded and how he looked in relations to other offensive linemen who played in week 1 of the preseason. But yeah, obviously we all know the horrible rep in which he gets bulldozed and it leads to a sack on Cooper Rush. Just not a good look for him. He got absolutely bull rushed, and his was so bad that people forgot that Roger Rosengarten also got beat off the edge. But that's a different conversation for a different time. Anyway, that's been bad. He has had some struggles, both last year in camp at times, and we saw it in the preseason game. And Todd Monken, he's been hearing the noise. The whole team's been hearing the noise. And Todd Monken today in his press conference went to bat. Just a brief aspect of what he said here. Todd Monken, his response to a lot of the criticism that is going towards Daniel Faalele in regards to his preseason performance against the Colts. This is what he had to say. If the internet posts someone walking into church, it doesn't make him a great Christian. It just means they walked into church. They picked out one clip of it. That's not Daniel. Daniel's been outstanding throughout all of camp and has played his rear end off. And we're excited where he is at now and where he is going to continue to grow. It was one play. That was one example. I can't imagine any of us having one example of something in our life, and that's who they are. That's the silliest stuff I've ever heard in my life. It's just the way it is. It's the world we live in, right? It's the world we live in. So he had some very, very choice words for a lot of the criticism that is going towards Faalele. And I completely understand where he's coming from. I understand where his viewpoint in this and how he's going to bat for this guy, because at the end of the day, no matter what we want to say and how we feel as fans, we're not out there seeing him in practice. We don't see him every day. We're not talking with him. We're not communicating with him. We have no idea what work he put in the offseason. You've had Ronnie Stanley go to bat for him. You've had Rashad Bateman go to bat for him. Todd Monken's going to bat for him. John Harbaugh obviously has endorsed this guy. There's a lot of people that are going to bat for this guy in terms of what he's doing. So again, as fans, we're not there. We don't see every aspect, every snap he takes in practice, every aspect of drills he is doing. We don't know every aspect of what he's doing. But at the end of the day, as fans, we do get to see what he does on the football field come game day. And we do get to read the reports of the media that are out there that are seeing what he's doing and reporting on this. Fans aren't coming up with this out of nowhere. They're getting it from the reports and they're seeing it from the performances here. So I understand where he's coming from, Todd Monken, but at the end of the day, as fans, we are seeing all of this and we are going to have an assessment on this. And this is the assessment many people have had based off of the reports that they've gotten about him and based off of how he performed on the field during games. Now, in terms of last year, I feel like at the end of the day, he was put in the position that technically wasn't a position that he was really comfortable in playing. It's not like he was known as a right guard. He more so played on the left side, but they placed him in that right side and he had to learn and he had to grow and he had to adapt. The first half of him just being there was god-awful. He was terrible. For the first half of the season, he was terrible. Everyone wanted him gone. Everyone was asking, please just put Ben Cleveland there. But as the season wind down, we started to see him make improvements. And by the end of the year, he was pretty solid. Nothing spectacular, nothing great, but he was pretty solid towards the end of the year. He was pretty solid in the playoffs. So for the individuals that have been going to bat for him, they saw that improvement and said, okay, here we go. Year 2, we're going to see him take that next step, and he's going to be a great, great right guard for this offensive line. So now we get to this first preseason game and we get to some of the things we've been hearing about him in practice as a whole. So in terms of last year, I feel like we can put that away. That was last season, his first time playing at that role. It is what it is. We can only assess Faalele based off of what we've been hearing in the reports throughout training camp from these reporters and from what we have seen so far of him in that first preseason game against the Colts. Now, in terms of practice, from what the reports have been saying, he's had some moments of struggles. He's had a good chunk of reps in which he's been getting beat. There's been times where he's been inconsistent. He's had moments where he's been great. He's had moments where he's been poor. So it's not exactly a great look. But to be fair in this situation and to go to bat for him to an extent, he's not the only one that struggled from the offensive line standpoint. He's not the only one that's had his struggles in training camp. The offensive line as a whole has had issues throughout training camp. So all of them got to get it together. Just targeting Faalele isn't solving the whole aspect because the entire offensive line has had trouble throughout training camp. I get why we target Faalele because we view him as the weakest link. At least that's how the fans, I'm not lying. You go on Twitter, you'll see it. The fans say he's the weakest link on the offense. Hell, they say he's the weakest link on the entire offense in general. So yeah, they clearly look at him as someone that's got to go. But yeah, he's not the only one that's been having issues in practice. He's not the only one that's had his struggles. There's been moments when you've seen Rosengarten. There's been brief moments of Linderbaum and Stanley, but most likely it's been really, you have moments with Voorhees, a little bit of moments with Voorhees, a little bit of moments with Ben Cleveland, some moments with Rosengarten, and some moments with Faalele. As a whole, the offensive line has had struggles throughout training camp, so it's not, completely fair to lock in on one guy and say he's a problem, he's got to go when everybody has struggled. But at the same time, it's been an aspect of discussion when it comes to him as to how poor he's been. And then you take the fact that in his first preseason game against the Colts, you get that performance you get into. So I actually have a couple things here, and I made sure to save it because I knew I was going to be prepared to use this. So Daniel Faalele played in that first preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts, as we all know. In that game, he had that horrible moment where he got bulldozed and gave up a sack. He had some snaps and he was relatively poor throughout a good chunk of those snaps. So that aspect of Todd Monken saying there's just one play, I'm sorry to say, throughout that game, in the snaps that he was in, he wasn't exactly the best. Overall in that game, he received a grade of 40.7 in the 12 snaps he had, according to PFF. But again, PFF's not the most reliable of that. Well, I'm not gonna say reliable, but it's not the end all be all, because stats aren't the end all be all. But he had a 40.7 grade. And in terms of run blocking, 62.9. In terms of pass blocking, 0. He had a 0 pass blocking rating. I'm trying so hard here not to go off the rails here about Faalele, because I have my own issues with him. He was also the second worst pass blocking. Oh, he wasn't the second. Well, yeah, he was the second worst pass blocking efficient guard amongst all the guards in week 1. He actually had the second worst pass blocking efficiency grade between all the guards. So like, he was the second worst at pass protection. So yeah, take that as you will. Those are just 2 things to say. But man, I'm trying so hard to be as objective as possible. You've been here for 10 minutes, guys. I've been as objective as possible. You know, I understand where Todd Monken's coming from. I'm not even gonna lie, I don't even know where this video is going. I'm trying to be as objective and look at both sides, but there has been far too much evidence in regards to how Faalele has performed on the field, as well as the reports. There's been a lot of evidence of his struggles, and because of those 2 aspects, it makes it very difficult for many people to have, you know, a different opinion, or at least a optimistic opinion about him. My take on this situation, you know, 11 minutes in, my take on the situation, I'll sit back and say this: the Ravens aren't going to move off of Faalele. I think they've made that very clear. They believe in this guy. This is their guy. Something severe would have to happen in order for him to lose that right guard spot, and that's just not going to happen. Like, he would have to be so horrible he gives up like multiple sacks and can't stay in front of everybody. Like, he would have to have such a horrible performance, and it would have to play a role in the Ravens losing a football game before the Ravens start sitting back. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even say one. He would have to have multiple poor performances that cost the Ravens games in order for the Ravens to sit back and say, all right, we have no choice but to bench Faalele. But again, that is the starting right guard, no matter how you feel about it. This is the guy. So no matter how we feel about it, we have to at least try to be as supportive as possible and hope for the best. This is the right guard for the Ravens offensive line. It's not changing. That's their guy. It's clear as day. There's no competition like the left guard position. Voorhees and Cleveland are fighting for that. Faalele is the starting right guard, and the Ravens don't plan to change that. So with us all understanding it, we have to at least try to be optimistic here and try to... I can't, guys. I can't do this. Oh my god. I just spent the last, 13 minutes trying to be as optimistic as possible. Guys, I'm not fully confident in Faalele in his ability to be the to perform at a high level consistently as the starting right guard for the Ravens. I am not confident in that. I am actually very concerned, and I'm very worried. But I'm also hopeful that he could do it, because I understand there is no other choice. If it was up to me, I would look to have other guys that could potentially take that role. There's a couple guys you could definitely look to sign and bring to this team. We could use some veterans on the right guard position. You know, I'm not saying he couldn't ever be that guy, but I feel like there's some aspects in his development that need to progress before I would feel comfortable in saying he's going to be able to do it consistently. Unfortunately, I don't run the team, and unfortunately, many of us don't run the team. Well, I can't say unfortunately. It's a good thing we don't, but in this situation, it's unfortunate that the Ravens aren't even willing to try to bring in somebody else to try to at least battle for that spot, or at least bring in some veteran presence to assist the guy. I don't know, man. This is one of those videos where I feel like I don't know what to say. I could be very negative here and really start showcasing clips of how poor he's been from last year and then how poor he was in the preseason game. But I don't want to add to the level of negativity. I'm trying to be optimistic here, and I feel like everyone has to be optimistic, knowing that the reality of the situation is he's going to be the starting right guard and there's nothing we can do about it. So we have to be optimistic here because he's going to be the guy. We have to root for him, and we got to hope he gets it done. That's just the bottom line. So yeah, Todd Monken's gone to bat for him. Rashad Bateman's gone to bat for him. Ronnie Stanley's gone to bat for him. At the end of the day, they believe in Faalele, and they're going to put their faith, belief, and trust in his capabilities, and they believe it will showcase itself on the football field come September. So we just have to hope that they're right in their assessments. We have to hope they're right in how they view Faalele, and he does live up to those expectations, because the concerns are real. This is just it's a frustrating topic to talk about. We've spoken about this many times about Faalele and the offensive line as a whole. It's just I don't feel comfortable with where the offensive line is right now, and I feel that if they don't get it together as a unit, it could cost the Ravens again this year. And if Faalele continues to have his struggles, it will be problematic. Todd Monken is correct. You cannot assess one guy or one person based off of one thing. That goes beyond football. It's just life in general. You cannot assess one person based off of one mistake, based off of one thing they did. You know, it's just an unfair way to assess somebody. And in terms of football, assessing somebody based off of one play, that's just unfair to do so. However, what Todd Monken's got to understand is, as fans, we're hearing the reports about Faalele and we're seeing what he's doing in the preseason, and it's not a good look. So that is a concerning aspect. As fans, we are going to be concerned. I understand where he's coming from as the offensive coordinator. You got to go to bat for your guy. But as fans, we are seeing these things. So the concern level is going to rise for any fan that sees some negative aspects towards an offensive lineman, especially when you have a franchise quarterback and you need to protect him. So yeah, this has been one crazy video. I don't even know what to say or how to go about this, because there's a multitude of things I could have done, and I really did not want to get negative here. I could have completely switched this entire aspect and say, well, first of all, Todd Monken, we love you, but you cannot go to bat for this guy. This is John Harbaugh's. I could have done all that, and I just don't feel like that's going to solve anything. You know, as fans, we got to realize at some point, the decisions that they make are the decisions that they make. And no matter how we feel about it, it's not going to change. Greg Roman was here until the Ravens felt Greg Roman's time needed to end, and they needed to move forward and move on to something else. So when it comes to Faalele, he's going to be the starting right guard until they feel he should not be the starting right guard. No matter how we feel about him, no matter what we're seeing, it's not going to change. So me sitting here and trying to be all negative and speak about the poor play or the poor performances or the reports that have talked about his struggles, bringing that up ain't going to change anything. He's still going to be the starting right guard. So I think overall, I'm just going to take Todd Monken's word for it. I have my issues with Faalele, but I'm going to trust the coaches to get him set up to be able to do his job and execute as a right guard come September. And if that is not the case and he's out there struggling, I will also look to the coaching staff and say, you got to take that guy out of there and put somebody else in before you get our quarterback hurt. I think that's all that needs to be said. With that being said, guys, I felt like I stretched this out a lot more than needed to be. It's just, it's such a conflicting thing to talk about. And every time I just kept talking, the back of my mind's like, man, don't do it. Don't go negative. You can talk about how this is a John Harbaugh guy. John Harbaugh likes this guy, and he's putting him out there, even though Ben Cleveland is a better fit. I didn't want to do all of that, so I just kept trying to be as positive and as optimistic as possible. It is what it is, guys. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Faalele. I'm pretty sure he's going to get snaps in the second preseason game. And obviously he's going to continue to do what he's doing in practice. We just got to hope for the best, guys. That's all I can say here. Anyway, I am going to end it here. I will see you guys tomorrow. I believe they do practice tomorrow. I think they have a practice tomorrow and Thursday. They're off Friday, and I think that preseason game is on Saturday. We are not at the playoffs yet. We ain't even at the regular season. But I believe that second preseason game is on Saturday, so I think they practice tomorrow and Thursday, and then Friday they have the day off, and then Saturday's the second preseason game. And I'm pretty sure Faalele is going to get a few snaps in that second preseason game. It's also a possibility that the starters could get some time in the preseason. I don't think John Harbaugh's completely dismissed that, and I wouldn't mind it. I feel like with the way this offensive line has performed in training camp and the issues that they've showcased, I think they could use some preseason snaps. I'm being dead serious. With the amount of false starts and all these pre-snap penalties they've had, they could absolutely utilize the preseason. They need to get some snaps in. I understand the fear of injury, and I understand that's going to be an element that's going to want to have, you know, it's an element that always plays into whether or not you want to put a guy out there knowing the possibility of injury. But it's football. You can get injured in the first play of week 1. You can get injured in the last play of the Super Bowl. That's just how it is. So, you know, you take the risks however you can, but sometimes there's just certain things that need to be addressed and fixed and improved on before you get ready for the regular season. And with the way the offensive line has struggled, I feel like some preseason snaps with the starters could help out in preparation for week 1 against Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. So yeah, I'm gonna end it here. I rambled on enough. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Be sure to stay safe and peace out.